Hi, you're watching Reddit Confessions, where the truth doesn't hide behind happy photos. Let's begin. The band had just started their third song when the wine glass slipped from my hand and shattered against the ballroom floor. People turned, conversations paused, some gasped, but not her. She didn't even flinch, she just kept dancing, with him. One arm lazily wrapped around his shoulder, the other tracing the air like she was floating. Her laughter cut through the silence I left behind. And me? I stood there, hands trembling, the eyes of strangers stuck to my spine, waiting for a reaction that never came. Because what do you do when your wife acts like you don't exist? An hour earlier, I thought the evening might save us. I'd put on the suit she chose. I wore the cologne she used to steal from my drawer and spritz on her wrist just to smell like me. I even agreed to attend this black tie event, her firm's winter gala. Despite knowing I'd be the quiet guy in the corner, I wanted to try. God help me, I wanted to try, but she came alive the second he walked in. He didn't need a name tag. You could feel the confidence when he entered the room. He didn't just walk, he arrived, and she noticed, immediately. She clutched my hand tighter when he passed us, not out of love, out of guilt. Then the music started, and without asking, without even glancing at me, she was gone, following him to the dance floor like a magnet. Like muscle memory. People saw, people knew. I heard the whispers. Isn't that her husband? Why is she dancing like that? She brought both of them? I stayed frozen for 3 songs too long. I watched his hand rest where mine hadn't been allowed in months. I watched her lean into him like he was the only real thing in the room, and I realized this wasn't her first dance with him, just the first one she let me see. The glass fell when I reached for my drink with a hand I couldn't keep steady. She still didn't turn, not even as I pulled the small velvet pouch from my coat pocket and gently placed it on her chair. It held the necklace I bought last year, the one she never wore, and a folded note I wrote 6 nights ago when I started sleeping on the couch. She didn't read it then, but she would, eventually, and when she did, the regret would hit harder than any silence I ever gave her, because the truth was inside that note. And once I walked out that door, there was no walking back in. I didn't leave immediately, not out of hesitation, but out of some strange hope that she'd stop, that she'd look over her shoulder and remember who brought her there, who stood beside her through 14 years of birthdays, tax seasons, burned dinners, and miscarriages. But she didn't. She dipped under his arm like it was choreographed, like this moment had been practiced 100 times in the dark, away from eyes like mine. The room got smaller. No one said anything, but their silence screamed. I picked up the cloth napkin I'd dropped when the wine glass shattered, folded it slowly, placed it over the velvet pouch, and turned away. Each step toward the exit felt like I was peeling off a layer of myself. My shoes echoed louder than the jazz trio playing in the background. Still, she didn't turn. In the hallway outside the ballroom, I could finally breathe. I texted a cab. Not her. Never again her. While I waited, I stood beside a coat check counter and watched couples laugh as they entered, men guiding women in gowns, fingers intertwined. For a moment, I wondered if any of them had also bought anniversary gifts that were never opened, booked counseling appointments alone, or stared at the ceiling while their wives worked late. My phone buzzed, driver 2 minutes away. Before I walked out the hotel doors, I sent one final text. Not to her, but to a number I had saved under a fake name for the last 3 months, Mara Yard Help. It wasn't really a gardener, it was my sister, the only person who ever told me what I didn't want to hear. I wrote, she chose him. I left the note, no punctuation, no flair, just the truth. I slipped into the cab as my chest tightened, not from sadness, but from release. She would find the note once the dance ended, once the wine turned bitter, once the high wore off. She'd see the velvet pouch, the necklace she once swore she'd wear when things were good again, and the folded paper that read, if you wanted him, all you had to do was say so. I just needed honesty. You chose silence instead. I didn't need to see her face. I didn't need to hear her explanation, because regret doesn't need an audience, and I wasn't going to be hers anymore. The next morning, I expected nothing. No apology, no explanation. Just maybe silence that would stretch far enough for her to understand. But instead, at 8:14 a.m., I heard the front door unlock with that same careless flick she always did, like she lived in a world where nothing could collapse. Her heels clicked against the hardwood. My suitcase was already by the door, zipped, upright, unspoken. She didn't see me at first. I was in the kitchen, holding a mug I didn't drink from. I heard the pause in her step, heard her inhale sharply as she spotted the suitcase. Then, nothing. No frantic rush to explain, no begging. Just a long, exasperated sigh, like I'd overreacted by breathing too loudly in her dream life. She walked into the kitchen with that professional calm she wore when firing interns. "Ellis," she said flatly, like my name was a piece of lint on her dress. "You're seriously doing this?" "Doing what?" I wanted to ask. "Leaving quietly? Not clapping while you humiliated me in front of 200 people? Not confronting you last night when you leaned into him like I was just your chauffeur?" I didn't speak. I just placed my phone on the counter and pressed play. The screen lit up with the footage from the hotel's live stream, looped from the event's website. They'd posted it for guests to download. I had clipped the part where she left our table and walked straight to him, the way her hand slid into his, the part where she didn't look back, the moment she kissed his cheek before the first spin. She watched for 5 seconds before reaching over and locking the screen. "Seriously? You're recording me now?" Her voice cracked slightly, but not with guilt, with inconvenience, like I'd become an obstacle in her weekend plans. "I didn't record you," I said. "You performed." I just pressed download. That hit something. She stepped back like the words physically stung. Her eyes searched mine, maybe for a trace of the pushover she married. I wasn't giving her that luxury. "I was drunk," she said suddenly. "It meant nothing. He's just a colleague. It was a joke. People were dancing. You're blowing it up." All at once, every excuse came like bullets fired in panic. Drunk, joke, work event. Nothing happened. I almost laughed. Almost. But instead, I said the one thing she didn't expect. "I'm not angry, Bryony. I'm done." Her face dropped, and for the first time, she looked small, not guilty, not scared, just stunned that I was capable of leaving. She followed me to the elevator, not begging, not crying, just watching. And when those doors closed between us, she didn't move. She just stood there, holding regret like a bouquet she didn't know how to carry. 2 days passed without a single message from her. No, "I'm sorry." No dramatic call, no passive-aggressive emojis, just dead air. I moved into a small extended-stay hotel off Harbor Creek. It smelled like bleach and disappointment, and the air conditioning rattled louder than my thoughts. I slept with the TV on, not because I was watching, but because silence had started to feel too much like her. But by the third night, I got a text. Just one line. "Can we talk somewhere private?" I stared at it for 6 minutes without blinking. Then I typed, "Sure," and nothing else. We met in the parking garage beneath the building where she used to pick me up after dentist appointments. The irony wasn't lost on me. I parked 2 spots away from her silver SUV and waited. She approached like a stranger, jacket over her arm, lips tight, hair pinned back like it was all business. She didn't sit down. She leaned into my open window and said, "I haven't read the note." That hit me harder than I expected. Not because I thought it would fix anything, but because I realized she didn't care enough to even pretend. I didn't reply. I just reached into my glove box and pulled out a small envelope I'd left there, sealed, yellowing slightly at the edge. I handed it to her. "What's this?" she asked, suspicious. "My copy. In case you threw yours away." She stared at it like it might burn her fingers. But she didn't open it. Not yet. She tucked it into her bag and looked back at me with the same cool detachment I used to mistake for maturity. "I didn't sleep with him, Ellis." I swear I almost believed her. Almost. But my gut, that dull, ignored voice I'd silenced for too many years, kept whispering louder than her denial. I watched her adjust her necklace, the one I didn't recognize, and smile in that half-hearted way people do when they've practiced a speech in the mirror but forgot the part where they were supposed to mean it. Then I said something I never thought I'd say. "Check the back seat of your car." She blinked. "What?" "Back seat, passenger side. Inside left pocket." She turned, walked back slowly, popped the door, and reached into the seat pocket. She pulled out a small velvet pouch, same as the one I left on the chair that night. But this one wasn't empty. It held the second gift I had ordered before the gala, a charm bracelet. The charm spelled out for every version of us. I was going to give it to her after dinner. The note inside read, "If you're wearing this, it means we survived something." She stood there holding it, frozen, not a word. And then I drove away, leaving her alone with the only version of us that still existed, one she'd never wear. 3 days after the parking garage, I showed up at her office, not because I wanted to see her, but because I needed the last illusion to finally crack. I'd spent too many nights rewinding my memories like broken VHS tape, hoping to find a moment when I could have stopped the unraveling. Maybe if I hadn't ignored that birthday dinner she cooked last year. Maybe if I hadn't laughed too hard at her saying she wanted to learn salsa. Maybe if I hadn't made myself so invisible. Her firm had glass walls, smooth furniture, and that cold white light that made everything feel cleaner than it really was. I stepped up to the receptionist, young, distracted, chewing on a pen cap. "Can I help you?" "I'm here to see Bryony Langston." She blinked. "Sorry, who?" That caught me off guard. Bryony Langston. "She's a partner here." "Oh," she said finally, nodding. "You mean Bree?" "Yeah, she's in a meeting right now." Bree. She had shortened her name. The name I used to whisper when she had night terrors. The name I carved on that bracelet charm. Now she was Bree. Slick, polished, unrecognizable. "I'll wait," I said, and sat down in a chair that was too low for my legs. 42 minutes passed before I saw her through the glass conference room. She laughed at something her colleague said, tapping her nails on a tablet, looking effortlessly powerful. And then he walked by. Him. The man from the dance floor. Same hair, same smirk. She didn't flinch, just smiled and handed him a folder. They disappeared behind a second set of doors. The receptionist eventually looked over at me and said, do you want to reschedule?" She might be tied up a while. I stood up. "No, I just remembered I don't belong here anymore." On the way out, I passed by the conference room again. She didn't see me. She didn't know I'd been sitting 20 feet from her for nearly an hour, but I didn't expect her to. She'd spent so long pretending I wasn't there. She probably started believing it. What she didn't know, what no one knew yet, was that I had already filed the papers. The lawyer sent them an hour before I walked in. And tomorrow, when her assistant opens that envelope sitting on her desk marked personal and confidential, the illusion she built so carefully will start to collapse, one silent brick at a time. Because sometimes the loudest goodbye is the one you deliver with nothing but a signature. She called me 6 hours after the envelope was signed for, not from her cell, not even from her office, a blocked number. I let it ring out the first time. The second time, curiosity won. "Ellis," her voice cracked slightly. What is this?" I didn't ask what she meant. She knew. Her assistant probably handed her the manila envelope like it was just another contract to approve. But instead of spreadsheets and quarterly reports, she found 12 pages that marked the end of everything she had taken for granted. No flowers, no warnings, just signatures, just truth. "I didn't think you'd actually do this," she whispered. That line, "I didn't think you'd actually do this." That sentence rang louder than anything she'd said at the gala. In her world, I was still the man who'd wait, fold, shrink, who'd absorb humiliation and blame it on himself. And the scary part? For years I was. "You erased me," I said quietly. "I just finally agreed with you." There was a pause, then the voice she used when trying to gain control. "Ellis, we can talk. You blindsided me. This is huge. I gave you every sign," I cut in. "You just never looked." She didn't deny it. Instead, she asked, "So you're really done?" That was the thing. People like her only understand endings when they come with spectacle. They expect shouting, slam doors, some fiery final act. But I gave her none of that. Just space. Just silence. The kind that eats at you slowly when there's nothing left to argue against. I didn't answer her question. I simply ended the call. 3 days later, her mother showed up at my hotel. That's when I realized how far the news had traveled. The same woman who once told Bryony she had married down was standing at my temporary doorstep, holding a pie she clearly hadn't baked. She said she wanted to talk. I nearly laughed. "You want to talk now?" I asked. She nodded awkwardly. "She's not herself. She didn't think you'd ever leave funny. That made two of us. I think she needs closure." "Closure is what you get when something ends cleanly," I replied. This wasn't clean. It was quiet. There's a difference. Before she left, she handed me a small box. "She asked me to give you this if I saw you." It was the bracelet, the one from the glove box. She hadn't kept it. She hadn't destroyed it either. She'd returned it like it was a receipt. But you can't return memories. You just learn how to carry them differently. I hadn't blocked her. That felt too theatrical. I just stopped answering. She'd left a few voicemails, some weepy, some sarcastic, one that just breathed into the phone for a few seconds before hanging up. But after her mother returned the bracelet, I figured the silence would stretch long enough to become permanent. I was wrong. It was nearly midnight when the email arrived. I was sitting on the lumpy hotel bed, half watching an old documentary about train wrecks, because apparently my brain has a sense of irony. The subject line was blank. The sender was her personal Gmail, no body text, just an attachment named justonething.jpg. I knew better than to open anything from her, but I did. The image loaded slowly. It was a photo, taken from inside a car, judging by the dashboard reflection in the glass. And outside the car window was the front of our old house. My house, the one I left. Her car was parked in front, but that wasn't what made my chest tighten. It was him, the man from the gala. He was standing on the porch, one hand in his pocket, the other holding flowers. And she had taken the picture from inside her car, from the driver's seat. She hadn't let him in. Below the image was a single sentence. I told him to leave. I couldn't do it. I don't want that version of me. I stared at it for a long time. Not because I believed her, but because part of me wanted to. After everything, some rusty gear in my chest still turned at the idea that she had finally seen the cost of what she did. But I wasn't the same man from the gala either. That guy would have driven over, accepted the apology, maybe tried to fix things again, but not me. I had learned that regret is not the same thing as change. I closed the email, deleted it, and emptied the trash folder. Then I opened my travel bag and pulled out the new lease I'd signed earlier that day. A small apartment, 20 minutes out of town, clean, quiet, enough for one. There was no note, no reply. She had made her choices in rooms full of music. Now I was making mine in silence. I never responded to the photo. I didn't need to. That version of me, the one who waited for validation, who sat quietly while his wife danced with someone else, was long gone. That chapter had closed not with a scream, but with a quiet, final turn of the page. And the beautiful part? I didn't feel anger anymore, just clarity. Moving day came fast. The new apartment wasn't much. No fireplace, no garden, just 4 rooms and a balcony that overlooked a sleepy street lined with worn-out bookstores and overpriced coffee. But it was mine. The first place I had ever chosen alone, for myself, not as part of a we. I hung no photos of her, no evidence of the life that burned itself out, one forgotten anniversary at a time. Instead, I filled my walls with music, frames of old vinyl covers, lyrics from songs I used to mute because they hit too hard. I started running again. I joined a community book club, mostly to force myself out of the house. But surprisingly, I stayed. I even made a few friends who knew nothing about her, nothing about us. Then one evening, 2 months after the gala, I walked into a local diner for dinner and sat across from a woman named Camille. She wasn't flashy. She didn't speak in monologues or lean too far across the table to be seen. She just smiled when I mispronounced the name of a pie, laughed when I told her about the wine glass incident, and said, "Sounds like you were in the wrong story." That stuck with me, because she was right. For too long, I was a background character in my own marriage, waiting to be noticed, waiting to be invited into the moment. But life isn't a story someone else writes for you. Sometimes you have to set the pen down on the wrong book and start over, blank page, shaking hands and all. As for Bryony, I don't know what happened next, and I don't need to. Maybe she changed, maybe she didn't. But I changed, and in the end, that was enough. She danced like I didn't exist, but I walked away like I finally did. Thank you for watching this story on Reddit Confessions. Now it's your turn. What's one historical event you wish you could witness with your own eyes? Drop your answer in the comments. And if this story moved you, don't forget to like, subscribe, and share, because sometimes real strength is found in silence.